5 hours is a great place to start. That's 260 hours a year. It's going to cost you about $1,300 to get 6.5 weeks of your year back.
This is the Agency Profit Podcast, the podcast for agency owners that want to run a more profitable business that doesn't depend on them. Introducing your host, CEO and co-founder of Parakeeto, Marcel Pettipaw.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Agency Profit Podcast. I'm very excited about today's episode. We have got somebody on the show today that has seen and built a lot of processes. He's dealt with a lot of employees, outsourcing. He is a serial entrepreneur. Can I call you that at this point, Nathan? I mean,
yeah,
you're back to back. He was the founder of a business that you've probably been a customer of. I know I have, called FreeeUp, which he started with just $5,000, scaled to $12 million in revenue and recently sold. And he's now the founder of a company called Outsourcing, where he helps entrepreneurs outsource the things that are taking up their time and become successful leveraging freelancers to build their business. And he's here today to share with us the things that he's learned from not only helping people hire thousands and thousands of freelancers, but now today actually helping them build and document the processes that are making them successful. And a little fun fact about Nathan, like me, he's a big fan of The Office. So shout out to you, Nathan, for being an office person. I just finished my third lap of the show, I think last week, and I still get emotional on that last episode. How can you know?
I'm sad that I have Netflix. That's how I watch it. So I think they're coming off Netflix at the end of the year. So I don't know what I'm going to do. Right.
So with that, Nathan, I'm excited to have you on the show. I want to give you an opportunity to explain in your own words, what you do, who you serve, and how you started Outsource School.
Yeah, I mean, I've been hiring virtual assistants for 10 plus years. And with my Amazon business, I mean, first of all, I struggled to hire college kids, which is how I got into the VA space to begin with. But I spent 4 or 5 years making every possible mistake that you could make hiring virtual assistants. And I wasted time, I wasted money. And I always wished that there was someone who just said, hey, here are the interview questions you ask. Here's how you run meetings. Here are things not to do. Here's how you prevent issues in the future. And I created a marketplace called FreeeUp that provides VAs and freelancers and agencies and all of that. And once we sold it, people started reaching out and asking if we could help them and teach them our systems. And we'd kind of thought about it as well. How do we build a community of entrepreneurs who get to skip that trial and error phase? We get to accelerate them and get them to make good hires right away, but not just make good hires. We want to teach people how to do it quickly, because I don't want to do 4 rounds of interviews. I don't want to interview 100 people. I want to be able to efficiently not only interview, but onboard, run meetings, fire people, everything that goes into hiring as quick as possible. Then it comes down to SOPs. And we have a dream to build this big library of SOPs that once people know how to hire, they can just plug these into your business. You want to go on more podcasts? Give this SOP to your virtual assistant. You want to have someone run your inbox? There's an SOP for that. And we also built a tool called Simply SOP to help people do that. And then lastly is all about reducing turnover and issues. So you got hiring, you got speed, you got SOPs, reducing turnover and issues, which is where our community and our support comes into play. And that's really the foundation of Outsource School and enrolling in Outsource School and being part of our community.
I love what you're doing, Nathan, because I think most of the people listening to the show, if you're anything like me, I've had some VAs that didn't work out. And I've also had some tasks that I did way longer than I should have, because the overwhelm of, the work I had to do to get it off my plate felt like it was more than it was worth it for the time saving I was getting on the other end. And that was wrong most of the time. And once I got that thing off my plate, all the hoops I had to jump through were worth it. But what I love about what you're doing here is you're taking the energy of activation. I guess that's the best way I can describe it. It's the one thing I remember from chemistry class in high school, right? It's the amount of work that it takes to finally get that process documented and working in somebody else's responsibility sphere. You're making that a lot easier. You're making that hump a lot smaller to get over. So I'm curious to jump into, just some of the stuff that you learned from scaling FreeeUp, because you would have seen thousands and thousands and thousands of people hiring freelancers, and you would have seen what did work and what didn't work. What were some of the big mistakes that you saw a lot of people making when they started trying to outsource things?
Yeah, so I'm going to start off with a huge tip. And if you take anything away from this podcast, it should be this, because this is what most entrepreneurs mess up. So there's 4 parts of hiring. You've got interviewing, you've got onboarding, you've got training, and you've got managing. And most entrepreneurs, they know you have to interview people, they know you have to train them, they know you have to manage them, but the onboarding is where people mess up. And I'll give you an example. Let's say that you interview Jane from the Philippines. You want to hire Jane for $5 an hour. The average entrepreneur, average agency owner goes to Jane and says, Jane, that was a great interview. I want to hire you for $5 an hour. Let's get started on Monday. What we give at Outsource School is a process in between the interviewing and the training, where we go to Jane and we say, hey, Jane, that was a great interview. I want to hire you at $5 an hour. But first, let's go through what we call our SICK onboarding method, SICC. We're going to go through rate and bonuses and raises and make sure that they're 100% good with the pay, because we don't want to hire them if they're expecting to double their pay in a year and we only give $1 raises every year. That's not going to blow up on us now. That's going to blow up on us in a year. So we'll go through that, but then we go through SICK, which is schedule, issues, communication, and culture. And for schedule, we want to know what other clients she has. Is she already working 100 hours a week? Is there any overlap? And for issues, we want to go through the common issues that people have with VAs, which is personal, weather, internet, computer, power. And we want to know how often they have each issue, what the backup plan is for each issue, and how they're going to communicate each issue. Because they can't just disappear for 4 days and say, hey, my internet's back. They have to let us know what's going on. So we go through that. We go through the tools we use for communication, make sure that they actually like the tools, know how to use them, and are good with our methods. And culture, we make sure they're a good fit, and they know that no matter how good they are, they can't work here if they're not a good culture fit. So this is a 20 to 30 minute meeting. It's not a 4-hour meeting. Everything we do is fast and efficient, but we give them a chance to back out at the end of it. And this 20 to 30 minutes is the best investment that you can make before a hire, because it saves hours, thousands of dollars down the line when your expectations are in line. They don't like the job. They don't know what they're getting into. They don't like the tools you use, whatever it is, or all those issues that you hear about, the nightmare stories of VA. So if you take anything away from this podcast, make sure you have an onboarding process before the training begins.
Hey, it's Marcel here, and I want to take a moment to thank you for being a loyal listener of the show. If you're enjoying today's episode, then I want to encourage you to subscribe so you never miss another episode, and be sure to check out some of the other amazing free resources we have at Parakeeto.com to help you improve your agency's profitability. We have lots of other content just like this episode, including other detailed blog posts on some of the key topics, and free downloadable resources like the Agency Profitability Toolkit, which has helped hundreds of agencies improve their profitability with checklists, templates, and free training videos to help you install the Agency Profitability Flywheel all on your own. So if you're interested in grabbing that, head over to Parakeeto.com and check the show notes as well. So with that, I want to thank you again for tuning in. I'll let you get back to the episode. I hope you enjoy it. Cheers. So when it comes to thinking about the priority, right? What are some of the thought processes that we should go through to identify, we've got all these things on our plate. What are the right ones to start taking off our plate and outsourcing? How should we think through that decision-making process?
So the 2 things that I've outsourced first in all my businesses are bookkeeping and my inbox. So for bookkeeping, I'm not good at bookkeeping. If I do it, it's just going to have to get redone anyway. And if I do my bookkeeping, that's time I'm not spending doing sales, doing marketing, doing expansion. Bookkeeping is not actually making me money. So that's one of the first things I want off my plate. I also want to get accurate reports, especially in the first year of my business, so I can make business decisions based on accurate numbers, which is incredibly important. On the flip side of that, I like to have a VA run my inbox. This is kind of a trick. We have an inbox management playbook that's one of our most popular playbooks among our members, because my most productive time in the day is between like 7 and 9 a.m., 7 and 10 a.m. when I first wake up. So if I wake up and I spend an hour or 2 in my inbox, I'm losing my most productive time. The rest of my day is a little bit delayed. I want to have a VA wake up before me, clear out my inbox, leave any important emails for me. I wake up, I respond to an email or 2, hit the ground running. And that same VA can book their meetings. They can do other small tasks for you as well. But it's all about making sure that your focus, your time, especially early on in your business, especially when you're making your first hires, is focused on the right things, which is the sales, the growth, the marketing, the expansion, the stuff you should be doing as a business owner. And neither of these are full-time roles to start for most businesses. My bookkeeper, it can be 5 hours a month. I've done that before. And the VA could be an hour or 2 a day, so 5 to 10 hours a week. And just that alone is going to help keep you focused on what you should be focused on.
The inbox is one that I don't think enough people really take the time to consider, because it seems like such an overwhelming thing. It seems like such an impossible thing to outsource, but it really isn't when you, especially when you have a nice SOP to follow. But the amount of time that can save you, man, it's crazy. And I see a lot of folks holding off until late to do this. And it's crazy to me because it's like, if you had an office building, you have a receptionist usually, right? You wouldn't just let anybody off the street walk into your office and be like, hey, what's up? And sit down and start talking to you. But when you don't have somebody in front of your inbox, that's essentially what's going on. Anybody can just drop in there and monopolize your time. So I love that one. And it's something to pay attention to. If you are doing, any significant amount of revenue in your business, start considering getting your inbox handled by a VA. And I promise you, it will buy back like very, very valuable chunks of time throughout your week.
Yeah, I mean, you're totally right. And then it kind of brings you to the fun stuff, which I like to do. And once you kind of get your focus going, then you can actually hire VAs for ROI generating tasks and even add a trial and error component. Because let's take lead generation, for example. There's a million ways to do lead generation. We have our lead generation formula. It's great. You can tweak it to make it your own, but there's a certain element of trial and error. You're not going to hire a VA for 3 hours and they're going to get you a ton of leads and your business grows. That's usually not how it works. But there's other ways to do trial and error too. You can use virtual assistants to set up affiliates, to go after partnerships, to get you on podcasts or speaking opportunities. So once you have a VA at your side to help you focus on the marketing and the sales side, even though it's less like straight up success and failure. Like an inbox VA, they either do a great job or they don't. Lead gen takes some tweaking and some feedback and some working together. But to me, that's the fun part of growing a business. I mean, we scaled FreeeUp to 8 figures in 4 years without spending any money on ads because we had an incredible virtual assistant marketing team that's running our partnerships, setting up networking calls, going after potential clients, potential influencers. We have an influencer playbook, getting me on podcasts and other, when I say podcasts, it could also be webinars, Facebook Lives, other stuff like that. And really doing research to figure out what audiences would be good for your product, for your service. And to me, that's the fun part. But if you don't master the fundamentals, if you don't get out of what you shouldn't be doing in your business, you can't even focus on the fun stuff.
I want to set a little context for everyone that's listening. When we're talking about paying people $5 an hour, $8 an hour, we're talking about hiring people, offshore, mostly in the Philippines. I know, Nathan, you're a huge fan of hiring VAs from the Philippines. That's been, a big focus. I know when I used FreeeUp, that's where most of the freelancers that we hired came from, and they were great. What is it about the Philippines that you like so much? And why is that such a thing for you?
Yeah, so a few points before we go into that. So you can take everything we talked about and apply it to hire people, US, non-US, wherever you want. We have plenty of members of Outsource School who use our meeting templates on their US employees. They use their interview process on US employees. So all that stuff applies. And there are plenty of good VAs in lots of different countries, and you don't necessarily have to pay them bottom dollar. I mean, we had VAs at FreeeUp that were making over $20 an hour. When we sold FreeeUp, we took $500,000 from the sale and gave it to our internal team in the Philippines. So you don't need to treat people poorly, but it doesn't take much to give them a better opportunity than they would normally have. The minimum wage in the Philippines is $12 a day, not an hour, a day. So paying them $5 an hour, $8 an hour, $10 an hour, while they can also work from home, not to drive from work, be with their family, all that kind of stuff is a really great opportunity that you can create a win-win for both sides. Now, the other side of it is, as someone who, people listening, if you're going to hire virtual assistants for the first time, don't go out and hire 2 people from the Philippines, 2 people from India, 2 people from South Africa. You're just adding a lot of extra work to your plate. There are going to be cultural differences, things that you're going to have to learn, adjustments you're going to have to make. And you should just start with one place. It doesn't have to be the Philippines, but in my opinion, the Philippines is a great place to start if you are going to start with one place. They speak English at a high level, which is something that's great for someone like me who only speaks English. They are used to working US hours. That doesn't mean that every single VA you hire needs to work 9 to 5. I like the hybrid where they're on in the morning and then they get 4 hours flexible later on in the day. But you also get people that are all about family, which is fantastic. I'm all about family, but more importantly, inside your team, you want them to be a family, which reduces turnover, which helps your business. So I could go on and on. For people that sign up for a free trial of Outsource School, we have a Hiring from the Philippines 101 video that a lot of people like, where I just teach you everything I've learned from 10 years in hiring from the Philippines. But yeah, I mean, it's a great place to start, but everything we teach can be applied for wherever. And I mean, I have a graphic designer in India. That's fantastic. There's exceptions to the rule, but I prefer hiring from the Philippines.
Awesome. So with that, I want to move on to something else that I think is a little bit interesting here, which is this idea of, the freelance economy and the way that work is changing and where you see that heading over the next few years. Because I think we're seeing a big shift, especially with COVID happening right now, where everyone's kind of working from home, and we're seeing, jobs kind of become way more fractional, and we're seeing careers become way more project-based than they are, career or job to job base. So what's your thought on kind of at a macro level, where this is headed and where freelancing and outsourcing is headed over the next few years?
Yeah. So, I mean, I think it's only going up, right? I mean, you have all these people that thought their 9-to-5 job was really secure, and then they realize it's not as secure as you think it is. I mean, more and more people are going to business for themselves. They're freelancing. They're realizing that having multiple different clients is a good thing. And on the flip side, employers or clients, they're realizing, hey, I don't need to hire everyone for 40 hours a week. I don't need a video editor full time. It gives you a lot of flexibility to not have to hire people in your town or the towns around you and get access to talent all over the world. So, I mean, I think it's only going up. I think if you're an entrepreneur and you're not taking advantage of outsourcing, you're not hiring VAs or freelancers, your competitors have a huge competitive advantage, the ones that are. So I think it is the trend. That's one of the reasons that I'm really excited, and my business partner is really excited about Outsource School. It's something that not enough people are talking about. A lot of people are focused on the marketing tactics, the finances, all these different strategies. But at the end of the day, you don't need necessarily a unique business model, but you do need to be able to hire really good players consistently and keep them around. And that's what's going to end up making the difference for a lot of businesses over the next 10 years.
Yeah, I mean, I'm seeing the same thing happen. And I think, even within the agency space, we're seeing the core team kind of become smaller and a lot more elastic workforce to just deal with the ebbs and flows that are happening in the market. Work is up, work is down, and it just doesn't make a whole lot of sense to have a massive team that you have to keep utilized all the time just to get a return on that investment. So it makes sense to start breaking those roles down into more fractional ones and keep things a little bit more flexible from that perspective. So with all of that, Nathan, what final words of advice do you have for those that are listening that maybe their inbox isn't managed yet? Maybe they're still doing a bunch of stuff that really they shouldn't be doing, managing their finances, booking their own meetings. What advice do you have for those folks that, might be foraying into hiring a virtual assistant for the first time?
Yeah, start with 5 hours a week. My goal for everyone who's never hired a virtual assistant before is figure out, how do I get 5 hours a week back? You can always increase it later. You can even start with less than 5 hours, but 5 hours is a great place to start. That's 260 hours a year. It's going to cost you about $1,300 to get 6.5 weeks of your year back. And you can start small, start with your easiest tasks, start with stuff that if they mess up, it's not going to drive your business into the ground. And that's the starting point, because from there, you're going to learn a lot. It's going to get addicting. It's going to get fun. And if people want help, we'd love to help with Outsource School.
That is some great math. Let's think about that for a second. $1,300 to get 6.5 weeks of your life back. That's a pretty powerful thought exercise. So with all of that, for those that are interested in learning more from you, Nathan, learning more about Outsource School, where can they find you online?
Yeah, so if you want to make it easy and get all of my systems, all of my SOPs, our software, our community, our support, go to outsourceschool.com/enroll. We have a coupon just for you guys. Agency Profit will save you 20% on becoming an Outsource School Insider. You get access to all of our stuff. You get access to live coaching calls, plus every new SOP we come out with new ones every single week. So outsourceschool.com/enroll, coupon Agency Profit. Is it profit or profits?
Profits. Yeah.
Profit.
All right. Awesome, guys. So there you have it. Head on over to Outsource School. Like Nathan mentioned, he was kind enough to create a coupon code just for us, everyone that's listening to the show. So you get 20% off after a 14-day free trial. So you can go and check it out. And how often we talk about processes and SOPs on the show? Pretty much every episode, right? So if that's still something that you're struggling with, this is a great opportunity to go find a tool that is going to be helpful with that. So we'll leave links to all that stuff in the show notes, as well as some links on where you can follow Nathan and the content that he's posting on social media and the different podcasts that he's appearing on. I mean, you're all over the place, Nathan, always talking about this stuff, always sharing insights. So if you're listening and you want to follow some of that stuff, just check out the show notes. And with all that, Nathan, thank you so much for coming on the show and dropping knowledge bombs. We really appreciate your time.
Thanks so much for having me.
Well, that's all for today's episode, but it doesn't have to be the end of your learning journey. Make sure you subscribe to our show so you never miss another episode. And if you want to get access to more great resources, be sure to check out Parakeeto.com, where we've got tons of other free resources, including the Agency Profitability Toolkit, which is loaded with templates, checklists, and training videos to help you improve your agency's profitability fast. And of course, if you like the show, it would really help us out if you could leave us a review and share this with someone else who you think might get value so you can help us serve more people. So with that, thanks again for tuning in, and I'll see you on the next episode.